Hey, shalom, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, call hello Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushua, Bahashem Rakakwadash. And of course, double honors go out to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone. All right, this is Naaman of the DC camp. And, this is something that keeps coming up, and you will have deniers, okay, to the fact that uh, we as a people aren't owed anything. Uh, the crimes that were committed against us, and they were crimes, and to this day there are crimes still being committed. Get over it. That was a long time ago, and yet you only notice that that attitude is only directed at us. And you have to ask yourself, well, why is that? Well, the simple fact of the matter is what we tell you, Jakes, that you Israelites, that no matter what you do in this society, number one, you're not going to be accepted. Number two, they're only going to let you get so far. All right. And you can go on down the list and just, it basically never ends because it proves what we've been telling or trying to tell you. Where we are now was not meant to be our rest. We always bring up the scripture, Micah 2 and 10, Hebrews 11th chapter, from 15 on down, Hebrews 13, again, this place was never meant for us to relax, to thrive, because we have what this devil wants at the end of the day. It's never been about being black, all right, or anything like that. We have what he wants back, and that's his birthright, which he's never going to get. So no matter how long you were to stay here, you were always going to get treated like you are by this devil. Anyway, I ran across this article. It says, you can see the vault there. It says, uh, access denied. I find that funny considering this radio talk show here is from West Side Story newspapers. Empire Talks Back. It says reparations. All right. How intentional. Notice that word. All right. Intentional government policy denied black, so-called, or Israelite, nobody's black, access to wealth. We've all heard of redlining and things of that nature. All right. And it's by Antonio Ray Harvey. All right. Uh, and this came out yesterday. It says when the Emancipation Proclamation was signed in 1863, the black community owned less than 1%, and I brought this out at camp, on a few occasions. It says they own less than 1% of the United States total wealth. All right. The task force to study and develop reparation proposals for African Americans was told during its fourth meeting. Mirza Baradaran, this is an important part here because let me continue to read. A professor at the University of California, Irvine School of Law, shared the statistics during the racism and banking, tax, and labor portion of the two-day meeting on October 13th. From her perspective, the power of wealth and personal income is still unequally distributed, and that inequality, in her view, has always been allowed, preserved, and compounded by laws and government policy. She's absolutely correct. All right, and she goes on to say more than 150 years later, that number has barely budged. Now, why is that? And this is why we try to get this into you Jake's head, that we are under curses. And this is something else that proves who we are as being Israelites. All right? We are being chastised. We are, not them pieces of shit over there in our land now. All right? Goes on to say, it says tracing the wealth gap from the period after the Civil War when President Lincoln granted formerly enslaved blacks their freedom to the present day. And we know that that was not the case, it was not true. The emancipation, as you were taught, that doesn't mean what you think it means. We were just transferred from private ownership and we became wards of the government. All right. It goes on to say the gap between average white wealth and black wealth has actually increased over the last decades. Today, across every social economic level, black families have a fraction of the wealth that white families have. Baradaran has written a range of entries and books about banking law, financial inclusion, inequality, and the racial wealth gap. Her scholarship includes the books How the Other Half Banks and The Color of Money. Black Banks and Racial Wealth Gap, both published by the Harvard University Press. Baradaran has also published several articles on race and economics, including Jim Crow Credit in the Irvine Law Review, Regulation by Hypothetical in the Vanderbilt Law Review, and How the Poor Got Cut Out of Banking in the Emory Law Journal. So she's accredited. All right. And the thing is, this is some coming from somebody that has, that's impartial, has no stake in either side, and that's the important thing. It says a 43-year-old immigrant born in Oramai, Iran, Baradadan testified that her work on the wealth gap in America was conducted from a research angle, and she respectfully submitted her testimony in that light. In her research, Baradaran explained that she discovered an intentional, and that's the important word, she discovered an intentional system of financial oppression. See? And this is the important part as she continues. For you assholes out there that push this bullshit about you got to get your education, listen to this. This wealth chasm doesn't abate with income or with education. In other words, this is a wealth gap that is pretty much tied to a history of exclusion and exploitation and not to be remedied by higher education and higher income. Going back to what we emphasize when we tell you we are under the curses. This mother effer, this Edomite, this so-called white man, is not going to let up. Period. Doesn't matter how much money we have. You haven't seen all the instances. What happens to Jake later on in these, once they attain a certain status, in the end, it's all gone. They end up in jail, prison. They end up dead. The curses. It's the only thing that explains it. But we understand also that the Spirit has to open your eyes. A whole lot of us are going to continue to be blind to this. Because Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahweh Shah does not want you. Alright? This is, let me get it here. Let's go into Romans. Because these churches, let me tell you. Wow. I'm talking about zombies. Alright? This is Romans 11:7. It says, what then? It's the question. Israel hath not obtained that which he seeketh for, but the election have obtained it, and the rest were blinded. 8. According as it is written, the Most High hath given them the spirit of slumber, eyes that they should not see, and ears that they should not hear, unto this day. And David saith, that's King David, all right, who was also a prophet, says, let their table be made a snare and a trap. Think of all these churches. They're reading the same book, but they're unable to see it. And this is why. This is a curse from King David. This is his own people. All right? It says, let their table be made a snare and a trap. All right, and a stumbling block and a recompense under them. The same book. 10. Let their eyes be darkened that they may not see, and bow down their back always. Mm-mm. You're not going to get it. So, from that, you have to understand that a lot of the opposition is going to come from our own people, as it does. When you go into Isaiah, went through this, Jeremiah, oh my goodness, all the prophets. Jeremiah in Jeremiah chapter 9 didn't want, he got to the point where he didn't even want to be around his people. In fact, let's get that real quick. Because these are the people, you know, where it talks about, what's the scripture that talks about a prophet is, it'll come to me, and I'm going to paraphrase it. A prophet is not known in his own land. I gotta get that. I can't mess it up like that. Jeremiah 9. Let's see. I'll just start at the top. Verse 1, it says, oh, that my head were waters, and my eyes a fountain of tears, that I might weep day and night for the slain of the daughter of my people. Oh, that I had in the wilderness a lodging place of wayfaring men, that I might leave my people and go from them, for they be all adulterers, an assembly of treacherous men. The fifth chapter in this, in verse 26, it says, among my people are found wicked men. All right? And they bend their tongue like their bow for lies, but they are not valiant for the truth upon the earth, for they proceed from evil to evil, and they know not me, saith the Most High Yahweh. 4. Take ye heed every one of his neighbor, and trust ye not in any brother. For every brother will utterly supplant, and every neighbor will walk with slanders. And it's only going to get worse, because this is crunch time. All right? You know, you got the squeeze not only from this devil, but in between our people and the other nations. For those of us that the Spirit lets see what's going on, we're going to stick out even more, all right, and therefore be targets. Remember what it says in, let's get Isaiah here. Let's see, that is 59. Nope. Wait a minute. Yeah, it was. It just took that long to, I don't know how this thing is acting up. This is Isaiah 59, chapter 59, verse 15. It says, yea, truth faileth, and he that departed from evil maketh himself a prey. And the Most High Yahweh saw it, and it displeased him that there was no judgment. All right, because, you know, the wicked still bear rule, and you have to consider that. All right. We ain't out of here yet. Continuing on with this report, it goes on to say that according to a January 2020 report just last year, the Public Policy Institute of California said African American and Latino families make up 12% of those with incomes above the 90th percentile in the state, despite comprising 43% of all families in California. Many issues support these activities that range from disparities around education, local job opportunities, and incarceration to discrimination in the labor market. Another trap that they set for us, speaking of the so-called Emancipation Proclamation, all right, they went directly from so-called freeing us. We know that was a joke. All right. Well, where are we going to get this free labor we've been so accustomed to for, you know, a couple of centuries, a little bit more? Damn, what are we going to do? I know. Prisons. So he went straight from that to the establishment of the prison industrial complex. Wow. So they created all these bullshit ass petty laws just to get Jake in the system. And that exists to this day. Even from your schools, you got this pipeline from school to prisons. What's going on in Tennessee now where these kids are being, where exactly was it? Where this judge just sending Jake, putting them in the system over petty shit. We're talking about children, all right? 10, 11, 12 years old. I shit you not. Laws that didn't even exist. I did a video on that, I think it was last week or week before last. All right. This, see, we are prey once again. But we are under the curses. We're the only ones that this fits. All right. Let's see. It says, while California's economy outperforms the nation's, its level of income inequality exceeds that of all but 5 states. Without target policies, it will continue to grow, she said of the wealth gap. And I want to be clear of how this wealth gap will continue to grow. It was created, maintained, and perpetuated through public policy at the federal, state, and local levels. Black men and women have been shut out of most avenues of middle class creations. This is from an Iranian. Black homes, farms, and savings were not given the full protection of the law, especially as these properties were subjected to racial terrorism. The American middle class was not created that way to support black communities, and it was not. A June 2018 working paper from the Opportunity and Inclusive Growth Institute, written by economists familiar with moderate to weak black wealth backs up Baradarian's assessment. Published by the Federal Reserve Bank of Minneapolis, the authors of the report wrote that strategies to deny blacks access to wealth started at the beginning of the Reconstruction era. So we're talking about in the 1870s, around the financial crisis of, it says, and resurfaced around the financial crisis of the late 2000s. Why is that? Think about that. For all you fucking so-called leaders amongst our community, you focused on the wrong thing. All these things that are set up to retard our people's growth, all these so-called educated amongst our people that are actually set up to work against us. Your preachers, your so-called educators, your so-called, your politicians, all this shit, while it seems, and that's why you got to know the difference in the approach used against us by this two-part political system. You have the Republicans, all right, they gonna let you know we don't like you, you know, fuck you, yada yada yada, and we letting you know you work against us. Then you have the slick, sly, and wicked so-called liberals. You know, they rub up against you, rub, you know, shoulders with you and shit, and Jake just gets into, just falls apart. All right, they love me. No, these are the motherfuckers. These are the snakes. These are the motherfuckers gonna give you all that rope that you need. Yeah, in the form of policies or whatever have you. In other words, they're gonna pretend to help you, while all the while, Sirach 12 and 10. Never trust thine enemy. We always tell you, and that's an important read. That's Ecclesiasticus, also known as Sirach. If you don't know what that says, please read it. I will go to it. Let's see, I don't know if I have time's sake, read the whole thing, but again, this is it right here, Ecclesiasticus, or Sirach, and you start at 10. Never trust thine enemy, for like as iron rusteth, so is his wickedness, and he has continued to be our enemy. You gotta wonder, what are these idiots looking at? The condition we're in testifies to that. Though he humble himself and go crouching, yet take good heed and beware of him. And thou shalt be unto him as if thou hadst wiped a looking glass, and thou shalt know that his rust hath not been altogether wiped away. Set him not by thee, lest when he hath overthrown thee, he stand up in thy place. Neither let him sit at thy right hand, lest he seek to take thy seat. And that's been the story down through the centuries when it comes to our two peoples. All right, the Israelites and the Edomites, the so-called white people. All right. 13. Who will pity a charmer? We've told you these things. This motherfucker is a snake. All right. Don't trust him. But then you know you still got those idiots. It says, who will pity a charmer that is bitten with a serpent, or any such as come nigh wild beasts? So one that goeth to a sinner and is defiled with him in his sins, who will pity? For a while he will abide with thee, but if thou begin to fall, he will not tarry. He can't wait. An enemy speaketh sweetly with his lips. Oh, we'll set up all these institutions for you. We'll set up this legislation to help you. We'll write all these reform these bills and all this, and it's bullshit. It says, an enemy speaketh sweetly with his lips, but in his heart he imagineth how to throw thee into a pit. You know, those sweet words, you know, and all the while he's got a dagger behind his back. He will weep with his eyes, but if he find opportunity, he will not be satisfied with blood. If adversity come upon thee, thou shalt find him there first. Yeah, I'm willing to help. What's wrong, brother? And though he pretend to help thee, yet shall he undermine thee. He will shake his head and clap his hands and whisper much and change his countenance. But that's all a show. Going back to the article, I'm going to have to wrap it up here. It says, let me skip on down. Of course, I'm going to put the description here in the link here in the description box that you can read. But she goes in. That's basically the meat of it. All right. Goes into the Federal Fair Housing Act, mortgages, you know, redlining, that sort of thing. But like I said, that's the bulk of it. I just wanted you to hear, if I may, while I close, some of these comments. All right. I lost my place now. Oh boy. But it's to the point where, oh crap. These Edomites, they play these games. All right. They know that they've screwed up. They know what they've done. The thing is, they think a lot of our people are so far gone, and some of them are, that they don't even know what's going on, and they can't articulate it. Let's see. Oh boy. I can't believe yeah, all this stuff. Oh, here's the one I had mentioned. It says Tennessee judge accused of illegally incarcerating black children by making up bogus off-the-book laws. Here in 2021. All right. And I cannot, oh man, Salakia, I might have to go back and I don't know how that slipped like that. That's the devil. Um, man. But once again, all this shit about going back to school and getting this degree and getting your education, you have to realize that you go into debt to get all that crap and you're still depending on your enemy to give you a job. All right? Does that make any sense? Really, does that make any sense? Hey, I don't want to be rambling and stuff, but you saw that report. That's not our imagination. All right? It is not our imagination. Hey, so with that, I hope whoever views this is edified. Now I got to go and find this again so I can put the link in the description box. Hey, it is what it is. We need to get the hell up out of here. All right? We have to get all that we're telling you out there on the highways and the byways is get your mind right. First of all, if you're in these whorehouses that the scriptures, these churches, they describe them as whorehouses, you need to get up out of there. All right? It's just nothing but zombies there. All they are about, and that was set up, all right? It's another way of keeping you mentally enslaved, all right? You are a Babylonian. You are a legitimate Babylonian, all right? America is Babylon the Great. This is something that further indoctrinates you to America, all right? You need to stay in these scriptures, all right, and pray that the Holy Spirit opens your eyes, all right? So with that, hey, shalom, shalom.